Hi guys, Brian Griffin here. Episode 2, we're going to talk about stocks and compounding. Can stocks help you build wealth? Yes. Are stocks reliable investments over the long term? Yes. What are stocks? What do you want to invest in? Individual stocks versus mutual funds or ETFs? How can you invest in those items? And then compounding, how it makes you wealthy. Stocks, can they help you build wealth? They 100% can help you build wealth. If you look at Bill Gates, if you look at Elon Musk, all the billionaires, they've all made the vast majority of their money by taking their companies public. They started a company, they took them public. They were worth money, a decent amount of money when they were private, but when they became public, that's when their wealth just exploded. And so you can do that in real estate. Absolutely, you can. Stocks, reliable investments. Absolutely. If you go back and you look at the S&P 500, which is basically the top 500 stocks or companies, basically, in the U.S., and you look at how they performed over time, they performed very, very well, on average greater than 10% a year. I went back and looked at the S&P 500 and their results over the last 96 years. So 32 of those years, the stock market went down for the S&P 500, and in 64 of the years, the S&P 500 went up. So it went up basically twice as many times as it went down. But in addition to that, if you look at how many times did the S&P 500 go down 20% or more, it only went down 6 times out of 96 years, 20% or more. It went up 26 times out of those 96 years, more than 20%. So it's much, much more likely that it's going to go up more than 20% than it is going to go down. And it's twice as likely to go up in any year than it's going to go down, which is why you're able to gain, a little over 10% return on average over the long haul. So is the stock market volatile? Absolutely it is. Last year it went down quite a bit. This year it's up quite a bit. But, it's if you're going to invest for the longer term, and I'm talking about 5, 10, 20 years, that kind of thing, or more, you can rely on the stock market. If you're going to invest for the next 6 months or a year or 2 years, be very, very careful. I would say don't put your money in the stock market if that's all the longer you're looking, because like I said, it can go down. And if it goes down, you got to give it enough time for it to come back up to get your money back or to provide a return. So what are stocks? Hopefully a lot of you know what they are, but if you don't, basically stocks are companies. They're the ownership, they're the way that you're allowed to participate in the ownership of a company. So Apple, Microsoft, Intel, NVIDIA, you go down the list, those are all publicly traded companies. So you can buy the individual stock of those companies. So in effect, you're an owner. You're a small percentage owner of all those companies. If you can either buy them individually, or you can buy an ETF or a mutual fund that owns all those companies, or small percentages of those companies, and you can buy into that and get the same type of return that they're getting, that the owners of those companies are getting. The only difference is they own a lot more shares, or a bigger percentage than you're going to own. You might own 1/10 of 1%, if that, of a company, whereas they could own 10% of that company. So that's the difference of how, why they're so much wealthier than you. But you can get the same percentage return that they do by, buying into these companies. So does it make sense for individuals to buy individual stocks. So in other words, would it make sense for me to go into the market and buy Apple stock or buy Facebook or some other company? Let's say like Moderna. When Moderna was, the vaccine maker, and they were very small, you could go out and you could buy some of their stock, thinking that, okay, they're getting these big government contracts for the vaccine revenue. As their company's revenue grows, their stock's probably going to go up because their results are improving. So you can do that. Or you can diversify your investments by going into a mutual fund or an ETF. And basically those mutual funds and ETFs, we could talk about the differences later, but for the most part, they're very similar. ETF allows you to go in and buy into that fund today, and you can sell into that fund today. Whereas a mutual fund, if you bought today, you can't sell it. You can place an order to sell it, but it won't be effective until after the end of the day. So the ETFs are a little easier to get in and to get out throughout the day, whereas a mutual fund, it all happens at the end of each day. So, and there's a few other nuances, but for the most part, they diversify. They go out and buy percentages of a lot of different stocks. Okay, another option that you might want to consider instead of just like the S&P 500, which is like a large cap or a mid cap or a small cap, are sector funds. You can actually, there's 11 different sectors that make up the stock market. I don't have them all listed out, but you can, there's a finance sector, so a lot of the banks are in that, an energy sector, so a lot of the oil companies or utility type companies, those are in there. There's a healthcare sector. There's a discretionary consumer, which I believe that includes like Walmart and Target, etc. You'd have to look to see which companies make up which sector, but there are definitely ways that if you think a certain sector is going to do really well, then you are able to focus on that and put some of your funds into a sector as opposed to just grabbing the entire market, which has all the sectors kind of blended, into one fund. There are many companies that you can, in effect, set up an account with and start buying stocks with. I'm not going to go through them all, but I like Fidelity and Charles Schwab. I think their websites are really, really good. I think they're trusted. They're large. They're going to hold your money in trust. You're not going to have to worry about them, going out of business and all the money that you have set aside for all these years and invested is now at risk because you went with, a company that wasn't strong enough or just didn't have the right morals, and they basically stole your money. If you ever watched the program American Greed, it happens a lot. There's a lot of people on there where they've basically provided their money or given their money to folks that in theory were going to invest it for them, and they screwed them up, and they are devastated by that. So I really, really like Fidelity and Charles Schwab, and I'm sure there's others, but I'm just kind of throwing out those two. I use both of them. I trust both of those companies. Let's talk about the rule of 72. And basically what it says is if you take 72 and divide that by the investment return that you're going to expect, it'll tell you how many years it will take to double your money. So I've got 3 examples. The first example, 72 divided by 5% return would take you over 14 years to double. The second example, 72 divided by 7% return, and it would take you over 10 years to double. And the last example, 72 divided by a 10% return, it would take about 7 years to double. So you can see after 7 years, if you had 100,000 invested, it would turn into 200. Then 7 years later, it would turn into 400. That's how you get an explosion of wealth as you grow older. I put on 2 examples that will show how your investments would do if you started off earning $50,000 at the age of 25 and just got a 3% raise for the next 45 years. But in addition to that, you took 15% of your salary and you contributed it to your 401k or IRA. And then based on that, those contributions, if they grew by 5%. In addition to that, I showed another one where it grew by 10%. And we're going to go through how those results worked out. So again, you can pause the video anytime you want to go back and look at those worksheets that I posted up on the video. But let's go ahead and review those and see what it tells us. So again, if you started at age 25 and you were earning $50,000 a year and all you got was a 3% raise each year, which is really nothing more than a cost of living raise. It's not including, any promotions, any bonuses, anything like that. Just, an example to kind of point out how compounding really improves your wealth. So we're going to start out at 25, making $50,000, 3% raise each year. We're going to contribute 15% of that year's earnings into our 401k or IRA. And then in the first example, the investments are going to earn 5% a year. In the second example, the investments are going to earn 10% a year. So again, if you remember that rule of 72 at 5% a year, you're basically going to double every 14 years. And at 10% a year, it's going to pretty much double every 7 years. But because you're doing contributions and you're getting a raise each year, that throws all that off. It's going to be better. So in the first example, at the end of the first year, you would have contributed and earned $7,800. By the end of the fifth year, you would have $46,000 in your investment account. Now, from that, you would have earned $6,000 and the rest was contributions. So in the first 5 years, in this example, you only earned $6,000. Now look down at the bottom 5 years. So you're going to do this over a 45-year career. So from the years 66 until you're 70, those years, your investments are going to go up $459,000. Over the life of your 45 years of investing, you had $723,000 of contributions, and your earnings on all those contributions and the earnings on each of those years was $1.4 million. So your total investment account at the end of when you turn 70 would be almost $2.2 million. Now, if you look at the other example where you're going to earn 10% a year, again, you're starting off with the exact same thing. You're 25, you're making $50,000. You're going to get a 3% raise every year. You're going to contribute 15% of your earnings each year to your 401k or your IRA. So at the end of the first year, but this time those contributions are going to earn 10% a year. So at the end of the first year, you're going to have $8,200 in your investment account. At the end of 5 years, you're going to have $53,000. So your contributions are in there, plus in the first 5 years, you've earned $13,000. But look at the bottom. From the time that you're 66 until you're 70, those last 5 years, your earnings went up almost $3.4 million. So that's where the snowballing effect comes, the compounding effect. So the way you become wealthy in investing in stocks, in many cases, unless you get lucky and hit a company that goes through the roof, you do it over a lifetime of earnings. And you leave your money in there, you leave it in the market, you keep it invested. So in my example, the second example, you contributed $723,000 over your lifetime, those 45 years, but you've earned almost $8.3 million on top of that. So that at the end of your by the time you turn 70, you would have almost $9 million in your investment account. So don't let people tell you, oh, it can't be done. The average guy can't do it. The average guy can do it. It takes time. It takes discipline. You just have to keep putting it in, keep investing it. And this is all based on history, the last 50 years and even the last 100 years. The stock market overall, the largest 500 accounts or companies have basically earned almost 10% a year, actually a little over that. So my only point is, if you're patient, don't get frustrated by the lack of earnings in the first 5 years. It's the built up earnings that you're gonna see over your lifetime, and especially when it gets bigger and bigger down the road. That's when you really see the benefits. What are some of the companies or funds, ETFs, that you might want to consider to invest in? Well, there's a call sign VOO. There's another one VO. There's another one VB. VOO basically is an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. So it's the companies that are in there, all the 500 largest US companies. VO are mid-cap companies, so they have a market capitalization. They're basically valued at anywhere between 2 billion and 10 billion. That's a mid-cap company. The small cap companies, that's VB is the call sign for that, the stock symbol in effect for that. Those are valued anywhere from 250 million to 2 billion. So they're much, much smaller. Another type of investment that you might want to consider is if it's a dividend fund, like VYM, that's a Vanguard high dividend type of fund or ETF that you can invest in. And each one of these offers a very nice return. VOO over the last 10 years has earned 12.83%. VO, the mid-cap fund, has earned 10.4% over the last 10 years. VB, the small cap fund, has earned 9.4%. And VYM has basically earned 10% a year over the last 10 years.